Great. Well, I'm so grateful to the Muslim Community Center for offering to show these photos. I've been hunting around and trying to think, for a long time of how I could share them and if people were interested in seeing them. And sure enough, definitely the Uyghur community here was eager to see the photos. And so we showed them once to Uyghur families only, and now we're broadening it to the greater Muslim community and others to come and see. So thank you so much for coming. I had a great time in East Turkestan. It was just so wonderful. The photos are, Kasim and I have been struggling to get the photos in order, and there's a sort of a flaw in the setup, and it's really, even with his computer skills, we're not able to get them into the right order. So, I'll sort of jump around in terms of the chronology, but initially, the slides start with my trip across the Taklamakan Desert to get to Turpan, was the first town I went to. So let's go ahead. And so actually this first photo is of the bus I took, which is woo. And then we jump. It's a little out of order, but this is one of my first photos in Turpan. And you can see there's a Chinese military officer on his motorcycle. I thought this photo was very symbolic of the fact that the Chinese were watching out. I mean, I and my friends were totally free to go wherever we want, which apparently is not the case at all now. You're interrogated by the Chinese authorities when you come to around that area, according to a friend of mine who just went there. But at that point, they would someone in uniform would appear sometimes in the photos. But I was free to go wherever I wanted by myself and meet people and interact freely. So, and this is a marketplace, the small marketplace in Turpan. And I took this photo because I love the kids' haircuts were so wonderful. I loved the way they shaved the back of their heads, and they shaved the heads of girls differently than boys. Here's a gentleman at the market. And, lots of vegetables. The food in Han China was really pretty tasteless at that time, unless you went to Beijing. There were some good restaurants there, but mostly it was canned fruits, canned vegetables, and everything cooked in coconut oil. But so when I got to East Turkestan, I was just so grateful for the vegetables and the wonderful breads and the kebab. It was really nourishing after a couple of months in China itself, or a month in China. And here's some kebab makers. And here's a handyman type thing, repairs, etc., with his family. And here's a little girl getting sugarcane, right? And also a wonderful haircut. And this guy was a traveling entertainer, and he was talking about what was in this bag, whatever it was, and he kept banging the bag, and so I stood around with the crowd waiting for him to open up the bag and surprise me, but he went on and on and on and on, and finally I gave up and went somewhere else. It took too long. So I don't know what was in the bag. Yeah.
So just a background, most likely what it was, it's probably, people used to tell stories, long stories, and probably was one of these stories that he's telling, and sometimes they use different ways, like maybe that what is in the bag is related to the story somehow, and it's trying mic so that people know you can hear. He's trying to make it kind of symbolic, just as a background.
two little kids with their ice cream popsicles, and a cobbler, and the butcher shop, and the bread. I loved this bread. I see you nodding your head about the bread. The bread was so good. It was there was just no bread in China. It was all white rice, so it was really a treat. I kind of went crazy for the bread salesman here. Taking his nap. Things were slow in the afternoon. And here's women chatting in the sort of front porch area of their homes, which were, what would you call them, Kasim? They were sort of interior atriums or corridors with rooms all around. Yeah. So these women are out front, and that's one of their cradles, their beautiful cradles.
By the way, the cradle you see is, when the baby was born, they used the cradle to put them kind of nicely, tuck them in, and then they can kind of, swing them around and go to sleep. And that's how I was like raised, actually. I remember, and
very cozy.
So this is kind of a very traditional house, and every Uyghur family, once you go in from the outside door, they usually have the front I would say front yard, but it's kind of enclosed, and they have most of the times they have grapes and not for winemaking, but just like really sweet grapes to eat as a fruit.
Here's a grandmother and her grandbaby that we met on the road. And two young dudes. It was the bell-bottom era, a little later than in the United States, but they were. I have a photo later on of two young women, and they just look really stylish compared to, I think in Han China they were still under the influence of, Maoism, and everybody dressed very plainly, and the women had these blunt cuts. Whereas, I enjoyed the Uyghur. They seemed to, take pride in how they dressed and how they looked, and they looked really great, like these two guys. Mother and baby. And along the oases, maybe could you explain how water was transferred to Turpan?
Yeah. As you know, Turpan, where she actually first, took the bus. Turpan is actually in the, if you look at the map, it is the first city that majority of population there was Uyghurs compared to Han Chinese that you come to. And Turpan is, is a city where basically there's no, like the only way to get water is to use the underground water and from far mountainous areas. And our forefathers, what they did is they dug the underground water tunnels and connected village by village, and they built up so intricate water canals to bring water from far and far away, and to make the Turfan as an oasis place to live. And then that air and that Turfan's hot air with the water coming from underground is just the right environment for grapes to grow and become like the raisin. And Turfan's raisin was famous. Like, in my hometown, when we eat raisins, we all say we just buy Turfan's raisin because that's the best. And the way they grow it, at the same time, the dry air with the water only coming from like underneath tunnel, and then the temperature in there is like very dry. At the same time, you can make it so that you can, there's water coming from, not from above, but from under, and that environment makes it as a just beautiful, right place to, dry the grapes, make a raisin. And in Uyghur, it's called kariz. When you say kariz, everybody knows in Uyghur it's underground water system.
I'm going to try with my mask on because I can understand. Kasim, let me know if you prefer I take the mask off. Just being careful. So up here's a woman with her baby with those beautiful little cradles. Can you hear me with my mask on? And the little kids in Turpan and in Kashgar, they were just all running around. There were, I don't remember any paved streets in Turpan or in Kashgar, I don't think, which is, I looked at photos of Kashgar today and it was like, oh my God, highways and cars even. I mean, all we had was donkey carts at that time, and the kids just ran around in the streets, a little gang having fun, chasing the geese like in this photo. So they were pretty free, I think. And here's a guy with his daughter piled high on top of the whatever kind of vegetation that is, probably on the way to the market. I think this is the beginning of the market shots. Maybe so. Not. Yeah, this is everybody sort of assembling for the market in Turpan, which was smaller than the Kashgar one, but it was still fun. And that evening, we had these performers come, and they were just wonderful. And Kasim recognizes
one of them. A very famous person. This person is one of the famous, a kind of a duet singer and a dancer, and pretty famous guy. So every Uyghur recognizes this man.
Yeah, and he came to our little hotel.
See, that means star guests.
I guess so.
They're from the south, from the Volcan area. But they came to Turpan, I think.
Oh, yeah. Oh, from the south, okay. Yeah, they were very professional, very talented, and really into their roles. This guy was one of the best drummers I've ever seen, heard. He was fantastic. And in the photo, you can sort of see the sweat on his brow. He was really working hard. Do you know what that drum is called?
It's a hand drum. It's
snakeskin.
Snakeskin hand drum. We in Uyghur we say dup, but it's
right, dup. And he would toss it up in the air sometimes and catch it. Yeah, it was a fantastic show. So, once again, you have a Chinese person, I believe, who's in the front just checking things out. But they were pretty low-key back then, at that time. And then the next day, there was another performance in our little hotel. And these guys, the dancing is so wonderful. It kind of reminded me of Greek dancing. So maybe there's a sort of a Silk Road Middle Eastern influence in the style of dance. Really beautiful dancing. And once again, this guy playing the hammer dulcimer was really good. I mean, the talent was wonderful. And I don't know what's happened to musicians now, but in East Turkestan, but back then it was possible to hear some really fantastic music. That guy was just great.
So just as in a background, when she's saying what has happened to musicians now, it kind of reminds me that a lot of famous musicians were taken to concentration camps because the music they performed as somehow related to some sort of like anti-government kind of. So if you from this you can see everything is politicized to a point that if it doesn't sound right to them, to whoever the government, and you're not allowed to perform. And just as a background information.
There was a really famous, let's see, what's the name of the main instrument? The guitar.
Dutar.
Yeah. The most famous musician died in prison, I think, recently, right?
It was rumored.
Rumored that he
They
died.
said he was taken to the concentration camp, and the rumor spread that he was died, and then the next day, the government allowed him to speak, but he's not performing any longer.
Oh,
He's alive, but in a regime.
but he can't perform. I think you can hear him on YouTube, right? Can you hear him?
The previous performances, yes, we can watch,
Uh-huh.
but not recent ones, like after he's out. He's no performance done after that.
Do you know his name? Do you remember?
Abdurim Haid. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's like the kind of, think of it as in the U.S. What should I like? Who's the guy who just recently passed away? The Nash, John Nash, Johnny Cash. Think of it as Johnny Cash of Uyghurs. Like really kind of man tough music and very like kind of in U.S. kind of Western culture kind of music, but Abdulhamid is more like very down to earth. Extremely popular among Uyghurs folks and that kind of music. So he plays dutar, the instrument she's talking about.
So let's see. I'm just looking at my notes. Oh, okay. So from Turpan, I don't know how I got there. Maybe a taxi or the one car I saw in Turpan. Anyway, I got a ride to the famous Bezklik caves, which were religious caves with Buddhist frescoes inside. And this is the route on the way there.
Yeah, just to a background, like before Islam came, or before Uyghurs became Muslim, they were actually Buddhist. And it was in the historical notes, even in Chinese historical records, it shows that the Buddhism actually came from India along the Silk Road all the way to China. And the Silk Road, the famous Silk Road that you see, is exactly what she visited, actually, from Turpan to Kashgar all the way, the Silk Road. And that's where one of the area that it shows the Buddhist heritage. And that's what she's talking about here.
So the mosaics, a lot of them have been damaged, but a lot of them are in excellent shape. I think we weren't allowed to go inside because I have no photos of the murals, but a lot of them were moved to museums in Europe. So you can see some of the museum mosaics in Europe, actually.
Yeah, mostly in Germany and Sweden during the Great Game period between the Soviet Union and all the European powers, England, British Empire. And at that time, a lot of expedition came and went there and carved up all the wall paintings and just, took them to wherever they came from.
So here are the entrances to the caves. And this is on the way back. And I came across some people farming in the fields, and I wondered if they were, was this a Han Chinese collective farm of some kind? But
You're very much on the point. I mean, at that time, 1984 is the time that China has not opened up to the world to as you see today, like all the policy that you have. That was real. It's starting to, but not really yet. So this is more like a collective farm that everybody needs to come and work because government asks them to.
although the fact that we were able to go to East Turkestan meant that I would assume that Deng Xiaoping was, wanted to open up more minority areas of the country to tourism. And that's why he decided to open it up. So it was part of that opening up that we benefited from. So then I went to Yarghul. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right, but it's an ancient city from the 2nd century to the 13th century, and it was an important stop on the Silk Road until it was destroyed by none other than Genghis Khan. So this is all that's left of it. And there I am in the distance. That's the only photo I have of me.
She's so humble. She doesn't want to, be seen in there.
And you can see the Buddhas in the top part, the headless Buddhas. There I am again, even smaller. Oh, now this I think is the beginning of the slideshow. I think this is the Taklamakan Desert, and those are the mountains, which I didn't write the name down of the mountains. The Flaming Mountains?
Yeah, the Flaming Mountain, that's what they say.
Yeah, they were beautiful. So this is the scenery I saw on my 2-day bus drive to Turpan. And this is one of the people I met. A few working camels.
And I can see the characters over there. It says, it's a little hotel. I'll say motel.
And Kasim pointed out that the man who's holding the camel is a Kazakh, because that's the kind of hat.
That's
Kazakhs
the hat
wear.
style. Is the typical style that.
There are a lot of Kazakhs in East Turkestan, and they're also being persecuted. And this was an intersection to, where did I thought maybe it was going to Qinghai province. Is that possible?
That is possible. That's also possible where it's it's actually the southern part of East Turkestan where in there's like 3 roads cross section. One is to the south, the other one is up north where you say Qinghai, where the Tibetan is.
Yeah.
So.
And this is where I spent the night. I thought it was a caravanserai. I was getting a little too romantic about it, but apparently Kasim thinks it was just, a motel built by the Chinese, because it's a long way to East Turkestan. Anyway, it was pretty primitive. And these women wanted me to take pictures of their babies, which were so cute. This is a nice woman I met on the bus. And the bus driver wanted his picture taken too. So now I think, okay, so then I went into Turpan, and then I took another bus, I guess, to Kashgar, which was immediately felt busier and more active and fuller. This is about the most paved road I remember seeing there. And this is near the downtown of Kashgar. This is how it used to look. Is there any of this still standing now? This kind of...
What is it destroyed?
Yeah, you pretty much like what you took in 1984. As a matter of fact, it's only exists on pictures like this in my memories and people's memories. It's totally like destroyed. When I say totally destroyed, I meant like these kind of areas, residential area is gone, no more. It's all skyscrapers. It's apartment buildings, and that's people have like driven up their house and given like, oh, okay, we'll build an apartment for you, and you can get that one unit for this and things like that. So that's the current situation. At least 10 years ago, when I got back home, when I visited back home, which at that time we're allowed to, um, I can't even recognize the building where I grew up. I just can't see. I lost the total sense of direction and where things are. It's like it's a foreign place to me. So basically, my like every Uyghur's childhood memory and all of this, it's just totally gone.
And here's Mao. Actually, this was the only statue or graffiti or any kind, or flag or any kind of evidence of Chinese dominance there. They just had this statue, which was sort of like a sore thumb in the midst of this wonderful traditional city.
And
It
this
sort of stuck out.
this statue of Chairman Mao still stands as of today. It's in the heart of Kashgar. Is one of the Kashgar is being one of the important route on the Silk Road, the center, and that statue was still there. It's actually the right in the heart of the city. That you can say People's Square.
So here's more of the, walking along this residential streets of Kashgar.
And those are no more, by the way. Just it's totally gone.
The quality of these photos is not great sometimes like this, but it gives you an idea of what the housing was like then. There was a tea shop down below where several gentlemen are having their afternoon tea. And here are the famous cypress trees, right?
Yes.
Cypress trees. Kashgar is an oasis city, and it was just lovely. It was really beautiful walking along these paths in between the cypresses. Whoops, and now we're jumping around a little bit. Here's more of the residential area. And here are some kids. Now this is in Turpan. Oh well, doesn't matter. But anyway, here's some kids playing along the oases. And this is in the central square.
Yes.
So, a donkey would never survive going through the central square of Kashgar now. So, on Saturday, there was the big regional market, and people from all around East Turkestan came, including these women. The women in Kashgar itself were less traditional, and they wore scarves, but they didn't wear the burqas. Is that the correct term for it? Burqa.
Yeah. So those are like based, those women with the all covered is usually come from outside the Kashgar city for the Sunday market to do sell their things and to do buying things like that.
So much more traditional.
Mostly, very mostly likely it's from the countryside around the city.
And here, hopefully, this is a series of shops that I really enjoyed walking by and having a look.
And Kashgar is known and famous for handcrafts, knife and all of the utensils and all of this handmade, like very. The name of itself, Kashgar, the name of itself, Kahishgar, means the city of the clay. So you will see soon that there's a lot of clay, utensils and clay, tiles and things like that.
Yeah. There's a brother and a sister and sort of a junkyard, I guess. And these boys are working in a shop that sells wedding chests. Those are wedding chests.
Yeah, you have to have one of those if you want to get married. Otherwise, a woman is not going to agree, And it has to be filled up with clothes and beautiful, nice gifts and jewelry and things like that. And then you have to put it in a little lock, and then the key has to be opened by the woman.
A knife shop, or I guess they're bargaining.
Sharpen the knife.
Oh, sharpening, a knife sharpening place. Thank you. And this guy is very proud of his beautiful knives. And saddles, really beautiful, ornate saddles. Another hardware store. Oh, and in the middle is a group of young pioneers, which is also, Chinese influence. There were young pioneer groups in China, I think also in Russia. I think it's sort of a communist thing.
Exactly. That's how Chinese communists learned from Russia, and with the little,
marching band.
Marching band
And the got to have a red scarf.
Red tie.
And we have to join that, whatever, this pioneer group and to wear this on every day.
You had to. Here was my favorite noodle shop. I really liked the guy serving noodles, and the noodles were great, and the man was very handsome, and we went there every day to get our noodles. And this shop was kind of interesting because I think when I came there and took this picture, it felt like, how you come to a place and you feel like people are having a conversation, and the conversation sort of stops when you arrive. And I kind of, I think people were already politically active in communicating about their situation, of course, ever since East Turkestan was taken over. And when? Was it in 1949?
Yeah, 1949.
So, obviously there was concern and resentment and, communication between people at that time. And tea shops in China also were sort of famous for places where people come together and they eventually start talking politics. So this is the Idka Mosque, beautiful mosque in the center of
it
Kashgar.
Still stands today because this is one of the famous mosques in the entire region, actually. It's almost a century old, almost. And Idka means, the name of itself means, place of, a celebration, or place of festival. Eid. Hate, right? It's Gah. Gah means a place. So.
Oops. Okay, a little out of order. Here's another shop. This is my favorite shop. He's selling all sorts of herbalist, yeah, apothecary, and you can see the dried lizards, and there's a dried bat.
Yeah, this guy can treat you for any kind of disease.
Yeah, any kind. But his shop was so beautiful. It was really a beautiful shop. And here's a call to prayer in front of a mosque, and behind him are the tiles, the famous Kashgari tiles that Kasim was talking about.
Yeah, this is another famous mosque. It's called Apakoja Mosque, and this is also considered one of the places that Uyghurs visit, even though the history is a lot of, during the Apakoja time, a lot of bloodshed happened, and majority of them know that it's not a proud of history, but a lot of people still do believe that he's some kind of a holy saint man and still visits. I mean, at that time, 1984, but not now.
So here we are back in central Kashgar with the Idka Mosque in the front.
This is a beautiful picture. I like that.
And a man preparing to pray.
This is inside, actually. This is inside Idka Mosque. People are doing.
I don't think I was supposed to be in there.
Travelers are allowed as long as they don't disturb.
Yeah. And now,
this is inside.
Yeah, they're beginning to pray. And these gentlemen hung out in front of the mosque probably every day, right?
After prayer.
Sorry?
After prayer, they just hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've grown up together. Actually, last time when we showed this for local Uyghur community, they came here. Some of them recognized them. Said, "Oh, I know this person. I know this guy."
He was there every Saturday.
It's like, yeah, I know him. I see him every Friday or something.
Friday. Now we're back to the other.
Yeah, the Apakoja Mosque again.
It's a little further out of town.
Right.
And these are
Apakoja Mosque that you saw the door, the tile, beautiful bluish tile thing you saw. It's there. It's a cemetery. It's a cemetery near the Apakoja Mosque.
And so each family would purchase or have made one of these beehive-shaped.
Yeah, it's called a family burial. So what they do is generational, and after new generation, they still reuse the place. They put their bones a little bit inside, and then they reuse it. That's if you see a little kind of cone-like, it's for a family, extended family members. Yeah, this is a tile.
And back in town, there was a group of musicians selling their instruments. And actually, I bought this dutar, or one of his dutars. And then at the last showing, I gave it to a Uyghur musician.
Yes.
From here, because it was just sitting in my house, and what's the point, So I was really happy to give it to someone who would play it and enjoy it. This guy played beautifully. Now I'm forgetting the name.
Rawap.
Beautiful Rawap player. So here are the little kids in Kashgar, all, you know, a little gang of them, always sort of hanging out together. And I love the little cart that the little baby is in. This wonderful put together handmade cart. So these were the guides and two little girls. And at a certain point, I attracted a lot of attention. So this was sort of, I'm really amazed that I raised my camera to take a picture of people because it was sort of an uncomfortable situation. But I think they were more curious about my camera, which was a big old Nikon, you know, the old-fashioned Nikon.
Yeah, imagine 1984. This is just the beginning to open up to allow visitors to come and visit, and they have never seen, right, like somebody with the camera taking pictures, and for them it's like, whoa, what is that?
Here are some other men hanging out together.
By the way, as a context, right now you cannot wear this kind of traditional clothes, and you cannot grow a beard as well. Just
You can't grow a beard.
you can't. You have to shave.
Oh, here are the kids again running around. I like the guy who's saluting me, and then the little boy in front has that sort of shy but grinning but kind of shy about it look on his face, and he is so tiny. Oh my gosh! And there they are chasing after trucks. But the last time I presented it to the Uyghur families, several of the men were laughing because they remembered doing that when they were little boys. You did too. Yeah. Getting a ride from the truck. And here's another type of hammock cradle.
Yeah, best hammock ever.
I'll bet. Yeah. So here is the march into Kashgar for the Saturday market. And here's the parking lot.
It's very true. That's how we used to go to market with the donkey cart. You know, we just park it there, and there are people who like say, okay, you put it here, and then we charge you like a few cents in a dollar.
So it was very crowded compared to the Turpan market. It was just packed with people, as you'll see. And here's a country woman selling some various hardware. And barbers, all working on these three men. And then 1, 2, 3. So change the photo. There. Down. All at the same time.
There may be racing. Who can do fast?
So here are some of the things that were for sale in the market. These are goats.
Yeah, animal market.
Yeah, it was the animal market. And this man had a goat for sale. And they also sold horses, which they would, you know, dress up in beautiful blankets. And then Kasim said they would ride them around.
Yeah, they usually have a section of the animal market where they sell horses, and they have a kind of horse track that you can just take for a ride and then, you know, test drive it.
Test drive it and sort of show off how beautiful and strong the horse is. So that's what this guy is doing.
That's what this guy's doing.
Camels. Finding out how old the horse is by checking its teeth. And even pigeons they sold. And, maybe you could explain what's going on here with the third man. What is the role of the man in the middle?
Yeah, like in a market like this, especially if the item is, kind of big ticket items, like they usually have a people who makes deals, who kind of talks to both sides and come to like help them to come to a deal somewhere, like meet in the middle and things like that. So that person is talking to the both sides, like you need to come down a little bit or you need to go up a little bit, and then it makes a deal. That's how they make their own money. At the end of the day, after the deal is made, both of them will give him like, okay, here you go, thank you for making the deal for us, and things like that.
And you?
This is what I was thinking. This two seller buyer never look for this guy. Just show up saying, why do you give it to him? Just something to make a deal. And whatever, and there's no fixed price.
Like a business manager.
Yeah, but there's no fixed price, and after make the deal, the guy say, okay, why don't you give $10 or $5? It's a very naturally good.
Yeah, if you have that ability, just go to a market and then you could make a few bucks and things like.
He's paying such close attention, though. I love the way he's paying such careful attention to what each one is saying, and they're very dramatic, sort of like Italians, in their bargaining. And people listening in carefully to the negotiations. And a deal is made.
Yeah, deal is made, a handshake.
And here's another bargaining session happening. And two lookers on. I said, I looked through some of my photos of European art because it kind of reminded me of some of the 17th century artists like Velázquez or something, where they show the simple shepherd worshiping Jesus or whatever. And it sort of reminded me of that. Anyway, it was lunchtime and everybody was eating samsa, which you can see the man bringing a handful of samsa out, and they're really delicious. And well, why don't you talk about samsa? You have more experience.
Yeah, samsa is the only food that you cannot find anywhere outside East Turkestan, and that's why every time when I see samsa or talk about samsa, I feel like I really want to have them. Yeah, we have.
Oh, you have some.
Yeah, we have some.
But it's not the same. Don't get fooled by it.
The samsa that we made is made it in the oven, but this samsa is made in the tandoori.
Yeah, I told them.
It's I'm sure many of you familiar with Indian samosa.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah.
fried. But this is baked. This is on the tandoori, tandoor we call it.
Right.
This is tandoori? Or
Yes, it is tandoori.
Another difference is there's a D in India, right? But we call it tandoor, no D.
Oh, okay.
Tandoori, tandoor.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Once again, the Silk Road, all this communication and sharing. I loved the women's beautiful long scarves. They were kind of dressed up.
It's a Sunday market.
Yeah. And this man offered me some melon. Now, this man is making, or boy, is making what?
Lagmen.
Lakmen.
It is a noodle. It's Uyghur noodle. It's the hand-pulled noodles, and that's how you do it. Like you keep, making it. You keep making it, twirling around, and then the dal will become really, really nice and kind of resilient, and then you can start making spaghetti noodles.
Yeah, it was, he's looping it, so it would loop around and around and around. Oh, there we go. Yeah. like that. It was great.
All right.
And this is making samsa, and the two men would take turns putting the samsa in the clay oven. So they go up and down, back and forth.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. You cannot. We don't have it here. You know.
I mean, yeah. What is there something that makes it
But it's
hard,
very
difficult
different.
to make? So now he comes up and the other guy goes down. And then, so after lunch, we came back to the main area and it was just packed. We were really stunned at how many people were in this one place, all discussing and debating, you know, negotiating and socializing. And there's some bargaining going on in the middle of this scene. And he is about to, they've just come to an agreement, the two men in the center.
I think so.
And then I looked down and here was staring up at me. The whole time I was madly taking pictures.
I should be dressed up for the market.
Yeah. I really liked the kids there. So we were lucky enough to be invited to a wedding, which was just so nice. I mean, it wasn't the wedding itself; it was the celebration afterwards. And this is the oh God, what is it? I'm blanking on the rawat that I purchased and that I gave to your friend here. And this guy was a wonderful performer. Was performing it there, and there was a little orchestra playing. It was getting dark, so dancing. Different men took turns dancing in this small area. And then we had a feast. And here are my two friends, American friends that I was with. And I really like this picture. I think this woman is beautiful. I mean, her fur hat is so beautiful, and her scarf lined with pearls. And her grandsons listening carefully to her.
Yeah, that's how, like, when I was growing up, and I'm sure a lot of Uyghurs here growing up, you know, our grandmothers dressed up exactly like this, you know, like spoil the grandkids.
Yeah.
Was it fashion at that time? I didn't know.
It should be a fashion again, I think. It's just so nice. And, you know, I think about her, and she was able to live her traditional life all her life. Another little girl. Oh, well, we're sort of out of order, but anyway, here's a field of wheat, I think.
Wheat, yes.
Outside of Kashgar. Oh, and here's, okay, we're jumping to the airport. This is the airport in Kashgar, which doesn't look like this now, and I don't think they allow flocks of goats on the runway anymore.
Jenny, was it like around May or June where you was there?
Yeah.
Yeah, based on the green wheat.
Right, yeah. It was late spring, so it was good. And here's a crowd of people who were not waiting for an airplane because there are too many of them and the airplane was very small, but I think just came out to see the relatives arrive or just to see the airplanes land and take off.
Most likely the airplane, because that's just probably just the beginning of, you know, that, you know, something is flying in or airplane. They probably have seen plane for the first time in their life.
Oh. Okay, this is the first photo in Turpan. I wanted to sort of introduce the idea that donkey carts were the main type of transportation. So here it is, the classic donkey cart. And a donkey cart gone off the road.
Drink water.
To drink water. Right. Now here's another, I guess, entrance.
Yep, it's a masjid in, I think it's in one of the masjids in Turpan.
I think it's in Kashgar, but I'm not sure.
Can't
We're
see.
jumping around now because the photos are out of order. But anyway, I thought it was small and beautiful. And this is again in Kashgar.
Right.
And these are sort of more elaborate family burial.
Yeah, these are for, like, for example, in a neighborhood, or if there's like a bigger family who is the imam of a masjid, or like some respected elders and whatnot, they usually have this sort of structure.
I believe the exam is some kind of shell structure or kind of layers you can put all the different family members.
Mm-hmm.
For one family, there's one big dome like this.
Mm-hmm. Two little girls in Turpan. And here's a shot I wanted to show earlier, but anyway, it's I was impressed with I was talking about how nicely dressed the Uyghur were. Even with their simple clothes and, they're not expensive materials or anything, but they knew how to put them together with, bell-bottom jeans, a nice skirt and a jacket, and little high heels. They just looked really great. Bye. I think that's the end of the show.
That's the end of the show.
So,
all right, well, we'll start the Q&A now, and if when you just raise your hand, I'll bring the mic to you. So, we answered all your questions. All right, coming to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm wondering how much of what we just saw in those photographs still remains. Is it like almost nothing, or half, or does anyone have any sense of today, if we were to look at these places, what would they look like in terms of the traditional Uyghur architecture and the mosques and the cemeteries?
no, I think you.
As a matter of fact, like what you've seen in there, consider it from, if you say 1 to 10, consider it probably 9 of them are gone. One of them, probably 1% left. The reason why I say so is the 1% is I can see the Eidgah Mosque is the only structure that is standing in there. That's from what I know. But all the other places that you've seen, all of the fields, countrysides, all the mud brick houses, all of this is totally, it's redone to with a cement structures, skyscrapers, and apartment buildings and whatnot, and roads and things like that. So think of it as like 9 of them is no more. So if you, like, for example, for someone who's grown up here like me, 10 years ago, I couldn't even recognize my neighborhood. Like, let alone 10 years ago, I can't recognize my neighborhood. I can't find the roads, and I feel like I'm in a foreign land. So.
Does that mean that the majority of people who live there now are Han? Or is it still primarily Uyghur? Right?
So this is an area where, it's really hard for us to come up with a number, and all the numbers the government publishes are not I don't know how do we verify it or trust it or not. But I'm just going to quote what they say in their papers. In 1949, in China's official paper, the number, the percent of a Chinese population in East Turkestan is 6%. 6%. But I think I saw that data in, I think 10 years ago. It's not a up-to-date data, but 10 years ago they said now the Chinese percentage is 46%. So think about it. It's it's in like a half a century, the number has gone from 6% to 46%, and that's what the Chinese government says in their official paper and documentation. But right now, who knows? We have no way to know.
Hi there. First of all, thank you for having this event. Came to know it through Bazura, and we appreciate inviting us. So I actually, to be very honest, was very ignorant about the Uyghur community and their history. I've learned quite a bit today and reading on the website. So thank you for those photos. I'm just curious from a cultural perspective. How does the Uyghur community here continue to thrive and maintain that heritage? Because it's kind of an interesting cross section of the Turkic culture, Islamic culture, the mountainous culture, and then now with some, of course, a bit of the East Asian Chinese influence. How do you maintain that culture? And then how many people are left around the world of that origin?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I've been here for, honestly, for 20 or so years, and our community has grown from a few families to maybe around a few dozen families over the 20 years or so. But we're just trying to come to grips with the reality that, our cultures back home is almost on the verge of being wiped out, and is continuous the situation is getting worse. But at the same time, that gives us some sort of that gives us a kind of understanding that what we had is not as bad as they claim it is. Because a lot of Chinese government, like the Uyghur people have grown up as much as the Chinese people have grown up in China, brainwashed to a point where tradition, religion, your heritage is like opium. Like, it is something that it's bad. The thing that is good are the things that communist parties believe that is good. Most of the time, what they indoctrinate you is like government is like your parents and take care of you. Whatever they say, you need to believe it and trust it and things like that. But Uyghurs who come here now, what actually, the more we hear that they're suppressing our religion, culture, and language, actually Uyghurs around the world, including this Bay Area, like the small community, with the help of peoples like you, organizations like this, we've been able to have schools for kids, teach our language, practice our religion, and in whatever way that we can to preserve our culture and religion. That's what we have been struggling right now. But beyond that, one of the interesting things that we're facing is we're facing a situation where one of the strongest force in the world is against a small minority. They saw it as Uyghur culture. They see it as a blocking thing in their plan to expand, like One Road, One Belt initiative of the Chinese government. What they have done is, one of the reasons they see Uyghurs as threat to their future development. And when they see it as a state threat, and that's what they have been doing, they have been suppressing, they have been, brainwashing Uyghurs. They have been really treating them harshly since 1949. But since 2017, they took it to another level, to a point where now we have the power, we have the money, we have the resources, and the world is not going to do anything about us because we're strong. Nobody is going to say anything. And now we started to do whatever the plan that we can, and they rounded up about officially their own official paper. They said about 1 million people in concentration camp. It's in their paper. But now we say it is about 3 million people. Originally, the government even didn't recognize that existence of those camps, but they called it so-called re-education centers, training centers. And we have seen people who graduate to training centers. And majority of the people who are able to escape are people who are married to foreign nationals, who have foreign ties, or who are citizen of another country like Kazakhstan. These are the people who are knowing the extent to which what they're doing to Uyghurs. We have never seen one Uyghur who have no ties whatsoever with the outside world are able to get out and tell their story. Not single one. If you see all of this in the foreign media and all of this, all of them have somehow tied to some foreign countries: Canada, Australia, Germany, US, Kazakhstan. They are the people who came out and telling this story. And based on what we were hearing, it is just unimaginable. And I'm sorry.
What is how are you working with the world, just like the refugees?
On live stream.
Oh, okay. So how are you working with, the global powers that are allowing refugees, and is there an effort or initiative underway? Are you collaborating with other nations or peoples that feel the similar challenge? I mean, this is not something that is. I won't say that's not unique, but I come from the Sikh community, so I can very much relate to what you're speaking about, and so I know there's many people around the world that could relate. So I'm just curious, how are you working with those communities to build bridges to help rescue these folks? Is it are the Uyghur community recognized? Are they being supported?
Yeah, I mean, Uyghur communities recognize this. They're very supportive. As we speak, there's an Uyghur tribunal, international tribunal going on in UK. Has been witnesses being called upon, experts called upon to testify and gather information to, have, those cases documented so that, truth will be known, and then or perpetrators are investigated and whatnot. There are a lot of ongoing efforts going on, not only the community, like the grassroots community level, but at the same time, in Washington D.C. we have a center there. Uyghurs strong organizations. They're working with the people in the government to bring up this issue up, and the United States are very well aware of what's going on. And they have been actually the forefront of supporting Uyghur causes. And recently they banned a lot of products made in the concentration camps, like cotton products and whatnot, in the news. And there are a lot of things going on. I mean, not that we're just, as a matter of fact, 20 years ago, when I say Uyghur, nobody knows. I have to explain it to them in a lengthy way. But now, if I talk to 10 people that I'm saying I'm Uyghur, 8 of them knows. And that is to a point, and I feel like, yes, I mean, the world is noticing it. Even though as bad as all the media, social media is bringing all the bad things to us, but at the same time, it is actually helping in a lot of positive way to make this kind of situation known among people, governments, organizations. And yes, we are definitely, because this is not only, like you said, this is not only Uyghur problem. This is a problem of humanity. At the end of the day, the Chinese people, I had a lot of Chinese friends. I told them, you guys are not actually they say Uyghurs in the worst situation. I said yes, I can see but I tell them you guys in an even worse situation than me because you guys didn't even know that that's the problem. You know, we recognize it's a problem and we're trying to do something about it. But the Chinese people brainwashed to a point that they don't know it's a problem. And I bet you in a few years' time, the Chinese people will wake up and say, enough is enough. You know, you cannot brainwash it to a point that we lose our humanity. We're human, right? You know, no matter what you say, you know, Uyghurs are human. I want them to live in peace. And that's what Uyghurs have been trying to do. I mean, 9/11, 9/11 just passed, one of the horrible events. As a matter of fact, 9/11, Uyghurs suffered to an extent, to a point where China used 9/11 to totally crush Uyghurs, totally. And that's the time when the US government, President Bush, which I have no respect at all, in a way, he agreed to the Chinese government that we characterize certain sects of the Uyghurs who happen to be outside China, was trying to do something about the injustice. They agreed to characterize them as a terrorist organization. And that way, they brought 25 of Uyghurs, innocent Uyghurs from Pakistan. They rounded them up. In Pakistan, they brought them Guantanamo. And there's like 27 Uyghurs are held in the Guantanamo prison because of 9/11. And Uyghurs are the one, our situation, the worst nightmare for Uyghurs started at 9/11. And now if you see, like, Chinese government go around and to Muslim world and say, hey, there are terrorist people. You don't want to help them. You know, we have terrorist problem. That's not but for Uyghurs, it's just, we just want to live in peace. We've been living in peace for centuries with Chinese. Centuries. You know, sometimes we're invading them, sometimes they invade us, but we've been living as a neighbor. I mean, and that's what we wanted to continue to live in peace. But now we become the obstacle of the Chinese superpower of One Belt, One Road initiative, and we're somehow became kind of backward and not forward looking, and now they're trying to eliminate the culture. And as an example, when I speak, if I can, I'm not able to directly call my mom, but if I am able to call my mom and say Assalamu alaikum, they will take her to the camp. I can't even say that right now. I mean, that's to the point. It's kind of a ridiculous point, right? I mean, when I say this, people say, how can that be? You're lying. It's impossible. I said, I hope it is impossible. I mean, I really hope so. But if you hear people, you know, being taken to the camp just because they probably prayed or they fasted or maybe they said Assalamu alaikum to someone, I mean, that just sounds inhumane to me. And I call, like, this is not only Uyghur problem, like I said, it's a humanitarian problem. All the Chinese brothers and sisters back in China, 1 billion of them, they have the most responsibility because they need to know that is inhumane. They need to hold their government responsible. Just like in the U.S., when we see something about the government, we take to the streets. We do whatever we can to hold them responsible. That's it. That only happens in democratic government like this. But in China, it's not the case. And I hope someday it happens, right?
Actually, it's a little bit addition to what Kasim said about your second question. So there are, we have a few organizations and group of people in DC. They've been trying like everything they can. Like we are screaming as loud as we can, but so it's just like it didn't get enough attention. So we know what happened in Syria. A lot of people suffered, and like when that happens, countries like Germany, United States, a lot of countries like accept thousands of people. And in the United States, there are less than 1,000 Uyghurs, and some of their application status has been suspended for 7 or 8 years, and it's never resolved. And there are companies like Coca-Cola, Nike, they've been publicly supporting China when we ask them to stop forced labor, and Nike even said, "Oh, Nike is a." I think what it said was Nike is a company of China for China, and Coca-Cola had the same thing, and the Visa, the like American company, have been doing the same thing, and the Facebook kind of like censor Uyghurs on behalf of China, and Google, YouTube kind of like does the same thing, and sometimes it's just hard to believe there is humanity left in the world.
Thank you for sharing such powerful images, Ms. White. I have a question for you. So it seems like you spent about 3 weeks there quite a while ago. I'm sure there's a lot of experiences, a lot of memories, but is there one that stands out, it's probably seared in your memory that you'd care to share with us?
Oh boy, wow, so many nice memories. I don't know, maybe those musicians in Turpan. That night I heard them, and the drummer. Music is a very powerful communicator, and it, and their culture is so rich, was so rich, and still is. And I think maybe that night of hearing that fantastic music was, an unforgettable moment. I mean, I had a lot of unforgettable moments, which reminds me, in terms of the other woman's question about cultural survival. I was hunting around on the internet and discovered there is an international network of Uyghur musicians who perform and share and communicate with each other, and put together concerts before COVID anyway, and are young musicians that are working hard to maintain their culture and doing really interesting things with traditional Uyghur music, but making it with a sort of a modern twist. So it's really nice to see that happening. If you look online, you can find this group, international group, all over the world.
Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Benim ismim Elmas Gökçek. Amerika'ya geldiğim bir 50 seneden geçiyor. Sizden bir şey, I want one thing. Can I have my bread at the neydi?
She's asking if you have pictures of Gulja. That's
Gulja's
where she's
picture.
from, the northern part of the East Turkestan. She's asking about that. She said you missed my town. She came here 70 years ago. She said, "Where's my town?"
I'm sorry, I missed your town.
That's all right, no problem. I understand. Long as you live here, I am happy.
She's one of the earliest
Uyghur,
immigrants who came to US like
50 years ago.
50 years ago.
maybe
50 years
70,
ago.
I think very long.
Thank you.
Hometown is in Gulja.
Gulja is my heart.
Yes, that's the hometown.
Because of the American.
Are we done? Are we done?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Here you go.
Hello, thank you for showing us these photos. They're amazing. I'm curious, at the time you were there may have been more progress by China on this front in Tibet. And if you heard anything about that or noticed anything in your travels at that time that gave you some foreshadowing of what was to come.
Interesting. I went to Tibet 2 years later. I just, I love that part of the world. And actually, I had gone all the way across the Middle East and through, Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and into India before. So, but Tibet opened up, as part of this opening up campaign by Deng Xiaoping to allow tourists, I think purely for the tourism money, not for any other reason. He had opened Tibet up to foreigners in like maybe 1985, and I went in 1986. And it was, the Chinese presence there was more obvious and more oppressive, but they really cracked down the year after I was there in 87, I think, when you saw pictures of soldiers beating monks in Lhasa. And, the real crackdown happened a year later, but it was, they're suffering the same thing. The Tibetans, the Uyghurs, the Hong Kongese, all around the periphery of China. And I don't know what that portends, but anyway, that's about all I know.
We're almost at 6:30, so if there's one last question. No? Okay. We can, yeah, thank you. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for attending. So before we go to the banquet hall, maybe Kasim can explain to us what we'll be enjoying, the desserts that are out there, if you're familiar with it, or if somebody, let me just hand the mic over to whomever prepared it so she can explain to us what it is.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming for this special event today. So with the help of few Uyghur community members here, we prepared some sweets and savories. And while we were just packing it, and we noticed that a lot of stuff are with gluten. And of course, we eat a lot of nuts. So there are a lot of nuts in there. So like we saw earlier, so we do have our friend Buzura made some samsa. You can try it out. And then some of the other Uyghur desserts. So you're more than welcome to grab a box or two on the way out. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and we'll see you out in the banquet hall.